Hello, everyone, and welcome to OST Live, a weekly broadcast on blockchain, branded tokens, and token economies built on OST. Simple Token, also known as OST, is a public blockchain platform that allows businesses to launch their very own branded token. Now, in this episode of OST, we have a special guest. His name is Thomas Power, and he is not only an advisor to the OpenST Foundation, but he is also a board director to multiple boards, and he's also become a blockchain influencer in the scene. Thomas, welcome to OST Live.
Thank you, Jose. Thank you for inviting me in.
So, could you tell us about your background? You've been on the board of directors for multiple projects and companies. So, can you give us some background about you?
Yes, I've always been in technology. It's now 38 years, so it's a long time. I'm 54. And I originally got my training with Alan Sugar, Lord Sugar as he now is, who looks after The Apprentice in the UK on the BBC. So I guess like the British version of Donald Trump in my early 20s. And through Alan, Lord Sugar, I met Michael Dell and Bill Gates and Steve Ballmer and guys in the tech industry, got connected into the tech industry, and then working with all these different organizations over a long period of time, selling initially PC, software, hardware, analysis, software, SaaS, building communities at academy.com. Eventually, as the years go by, you end up as a board member on various boards around the world, in America, in Europe, and in Asia, and also in New Zealand now, of all places, with 9 spokes.
Great. And then now you've become to be a blockchain influencer in the space. You have over 300,000 Twitter followers. Can you tell us about how you came to be a blockchain influencer? And also, do you think you can move your camera down a little bit? Or there you go. Now
I'll lean back.
Great, that's better.
Right. Yes. When I look back at the .com explosion, when I look back at the early 90s, I've been online since 1993, so about 25 years, and I'm a historian. I guess now I'm kind of like a digital historian or an internet historian, but classically I'm a historian, and I studied religious history as a kid. And when I look at the journey of the arrival, if you like, of the World Wide Web, the Mosaic browser, Netscape, the Netscape IPO in 1995, August the 9th, when I started to look at the gap between .com and blockchain, I started to realize that there was a 20-year delay between Internet 1 and Internet 2. And if you look at something like the Ethereum ICO, and you compare that with the Netscape IPO, and then you start to look at the dates of Bitcoin blockchain, the emergence of Bitcoin in 2009, and then follow the dates, what's happening is we're tracking a 20-year cycle. And so I started to study all the dates and all the people. And then I started seeing on Twitter, people talked about .com was .coin and .coin was .com. And I started to see these phrases and I'm thinking, hang on a second, this is history kind of repeating itself, swapping e-commerce, if you like, for blockchain 20 years later. But something different is happening. And so I started to study. I started to network, I started to go to all the conferences, I started to think about writing a book, and I then started analysing all of these white papers with Sean O in New Zealand, and we analysed 200 or 300 of them to pick out the nuggets. And as a result of talking about it, studying it, going to all the events, I kind of just got well known, and then Jason called me I think it was last sort of April, May last year, and he said, will you help us out with OST? And I've always loved Jason. He's a real bro. He's been in the game as long as I have. And I believe in him. and I believe in his idea. So I thought, yeah, and then I really got into it, and then I started tweeting more and more about it. And then all these ICO white papers started pouring into my email. I started getting 2 or 3 a day, and I was thinking, oh my God, I've only really got behind Jason. Now they started pouring in. So I thought, I need to study them all. I need to study the meme, the trend, put it into a book. So I worked with Sean in Wellington in New Zealand, and the book will be out later this year. And on the back of that, I guess I've become part of the furniture of the blockchain. I'm sort of I'm in the room with everyone else, but I see myself on the wall like a clock or a piece of furniture in the background, listening, watching, observing, connecting, that kind of stuff.
Great. So I wanted to ask, so last year we had an explosion of ICOs. People say 2017 was the year of ICOs, and we saw so many companies get into blockchain and implement tokens into the business. But now in 2018, we've been seeing a downturn in the crypto sphere, whether we're seeing a downturn of ICOs, a downturn of companies that are no longer implementing tokens. So what's your opinion on sort of that 2017 ICO hype, as some people would call it, to 2018?
Okay, so again, I use my history, and those people will remember the IPO of Amazon in May 1997, the collapse of Amazon in 1998 and 99, and then obviously its huge recovery to where it is now. And yeah, 2017 was the year of the ICO. I think in total, there's been something like 3,500 of these ICOs in 2017 and 2018. If we compare it with .com, that's actually about the same number of .com startups in 1997 and 1998, if you compare the numbers. So that's not actually a big deal. Obviously, what is a big deal is 2017 being the year of the ICO, which is quite clever. But if we go back again to .com 97, 98 to 2018, 99% have gone bust. So there's no reason at all why 99% of the blockchain projects, the token projects, will not follow the same pattern. So yeah, it was a special year. Yes to the people who got their ICO away. Obviously, they're challenged now with the collapse of Ethereum, which looks like to me it's heading below $100 a share, $100 a token, before it bottoms. Like Bitcoin, I see hitting 2,500, 3,000 before it bottoms. So yeah, it was a unique year. But if you compare it to 1997.com, it wasn't a unique year. It was just the market being born. Lots of ideas, lots of speculation, lots of hype, lots of nonsense, lots of lack of regulation, and lots of lack of discipline of organizations. But yeah, markets have to be born, and markets are born with lots of errors at the beginning. And a few, the 1%, make it through. And that's why I'm a big fan of what's going on at OST and what Jason's doing.
So you said there's a lot of lack of regulation, a lot of projects going on. Overall, there's just a lot of noise in the industry. So how can people tell apart, a good project from a not so good project? Or I
think you have to focus on the user, Jose, because if you look at what we've created an environment where effectively attention is the product now. People want to be paid for their attention. And that's really what tokenomics is about. And if we look at different parts of the blockchain, one part is the identity. How are you going to manage your identity and all your paperwork, your passport, driving license, your tax returns, your utility bills, your general identity? An identity on the blockchain, I cannot see Google, Apple, Facebook, Amazon, Microsoft. I cannot see them giving up identity on the blockchain because that's their bread and butter. When you think of something else that's very important to users, tracking products from out of the ground where products are made, whether it be grown or mined, onto your shelf in your fridge or the store or wherever you consume, product tracking is huge on the blockchain and will be will get bigger and bigger. But to me, outside of identity and product tracking, because identity is very B2C, very consumer driven. And all of us revolve around either Android or Microsoft or iOS devices, and obviously Facebook login. But outside of identity B2C, product tracking, which is B2B, very, very IBM, very Oracle, very back-end, very blockchain as a service kind of. To me, the real opportunity is the tokenomics, because we're going to be paid for our attention. Every time we touch a device, every time we touch our desktop, our mobile, our smartphone, get in our car, press a button, we're going to get a token for that. Every like, every share, every retweet, every listen, every watch, every touch, every step walked, every mile driven, every mile flown, every train traveled on, we are going to get a token for that. And that's really where the scale of the opportunity is for the brands. But of course, the brands are dependent on Google, Amazon, Facebook, and Apple, because they've got the power, because they've got the ID, they've got the login, they've got this. And the person who's got this has got control. And so I really see a mass shift to capturing and paying for attention, because people are overwhelmed with messages on mobile apps. You know, when you switch on your phone, you don't know which app to use open first to answer the messages. You've got your Outlook 365, you've got your Gmail, you've got your Telegram, you've got your Signal, you've got WhatsApp, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, on and on go the messages. People are overwhelmed with information. So to get their attention, you're going to have to pay for it, and you're going to pay for that attention with tokens. Whether that be Facecoin, Googlecoin, Frittercoin, Amazon, effectively tokens are going to be like a service, tokens as a service, which is what I think you'll get through organizations like OST. I can't see the big four giving up identity, but the big back end of product tracking of all products, B2B and B2C, that is huge for the B2B market. So to me, I look for projects, in answer to your question, the best projects to me are around identity, product tracking, and tokenomics, or what I call tokens as a service, TAS, for want of another awful acronym.
Great. So something that is very user focused, because we have this new product that we call attention, that tokenizing now allows for people to get rewarded very easily and efficiently for their attention. As you mentioned, there's many different industries that can implement tokens that ultimately give back to the users for their attention.
Yes, and the best example of that I've seen in terms of paying for attention is the new Brave browser. And I really admire them doing an ICO, creating a token, creating effectively a basic attention token, and then paying you for surfing, paying you for browsing, paying you for looking at things. Now, that is the right idea, but the organization, I think, has 4 million users now. I think I saw that tweeted this week, 4.2 million users, which is a great start. But compared to the scale of Google Chrome or Safari or Edge, it's tiny. And obviously, people don't yet trust the brand. But the idea of paying people to surf and use, that's not a new idea. We had that in the mid-90s. But receiving a token that you can store in a BAT or an Ethereum white label, however you're storing your activity, that is the basic idea being done correctly, but without a big brand. If somebody chooses to partner with Brave and turn them into a mega brand browser, they have a chance. But the idea is solid, so I admire them as a project.
So this is a project that you find particularly compelling. So Brave is a browser that uses what they call basic attention tokens to reward attention. So correct me if I'm wrong. Basically, does the user pay any website based on their browsing? So
Yes.
So it changes the model versus the website having to pay to put something to the user.
Yeah, I mean, it could work either way around, but basically, Brave are arbitraging attention.
Great. And then
the thing I worry about with the power of Google, Amazon, and Facebook, and I use them all the time, is that they're not really very sensitive to the user. They say they are, but they don't really know our behavior intimately, other than tracking us physically. Obviously, geocoded physical movement and movements around. But there's not really any intimate relationship between us. We're not rewarded for our level of activity with Google or Android. We're not rewarded for our level of activity with Microsoft or Apple or Facebook or Amazon or Twitter or LinkedIn. And if they want people to continue using these systems and pumping information into them, they've got to reward them. So they have to figure out how they're going to build that model. And it's not as if they've got a choice here, because the Chinese at Tencent, at Alibaba, at Baidu, they're going to do it anyway. And you can see it already happening through their chat apps. So the question is how they do it and who they do it with. And when you acquire all these tokens for your activity, where do you redeem them? Do you redeem Google tokens on the Alibaba marketplace? Can you redeem Apple tokens on the Facebook marketplace? Can you use Tencent tokens on the Amazon marketplace? But the issue is, what are the brands going to do about this? Because power is consolidating into a few places. If they're the first to launch token as a service with somebody like OST or an organization like that, what are the brands going to do? Because they're going to succumb to the power of the token. And the people who capture the attention first inside these tokens have even more power. And so there'll be questions about regulation, questions about breaking up these assets into many different assets to give other companies a chance to enter the market, and to give new capital a chance to enter the market.
Great. So liquidity is obviously very important here. Other than the Brave project, are there any people in the blockchain space that you find particularly compelling?
Yeah, I'm very fascinated by Charles Hoskinson. I think what he's doing is special. I think he's really trying to build an alternative approach, an alternative platform. And I like the way he's leading his organization, leading his community, leading the market, keeping it humorous, keeping it funny, keeping it international, keeping it intellectual. The other projects, of which there are many, I find a bit murky, a bit mysterious, a bit dark's not the right word, but markets have to be led by somebody. Whether it's a Jason, whether it's a Steve Jobs, a Bill Gates, a Mark Zuckerberg, a Jeff Bezos, a Michael Dell, an Alan Sugar, markets have to be led by a face, and people want to see a face. They want to see a community building behind that face. And I find a lot of the top 100 projects in the crypto space have got no face. And when I don't see a face, I get nervous. So I like what Joseph is doing with Consensus and Ethereum. I like Vitalik sort of crusading the cause. You know, he's kind of like a sort of a Jesus Christ of crypto in his own right. I like the way Charles is operating. I like what Jason is doing. But a lot of the other projects to me look a bit, I'm not sure. Until I see a face, I'm not sure. And love them or hate them, the faces of Bill Gates and Michael Dell and Andy Grove and Steve Jobs and Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, Tim Cook, these faces are important to people. At first you engage with the face, then you start to listen to the material, then you consider joining the community, and then down the line you choose what product you consume. But it all starts with the face. And to me, the crypto industry is lacking face, lacking leadership, lacking community building, lacking physical events in the different cities around the world that bring the story together and make it more professional. It still looks a bit flaky, a bit dodgy, a bit messy, and you can't build an industry like that. It's just like the early days of .com.
So what advice would you give to some of the solid projects out there to stand out from the rest of the crowd?
Well, stand up and show your face. physically stand up, tell your story, wherever you want to tell that story, on Telegram, on Signal, on WhatsApp, on Twitter, on YouTube, on your podcast, OST, on all the various podcasts coming from Laura Shin's super podcast, Unchained. Tell your story, build community, publish video, publish content, and run lots of events, little events in all the cities, the major cities around the world. So you get a following, get a gathering, get a belief system, get a crusade, if you like, around the project. And the users will follow that. I think a lot of, dare I say, geeks are uncomfortable doing that. And so the ones who stand out. And it's a very, very small group. And so I would say stand up and tell your story, build a community, and take the lead. And people will follow. Even if the project isn't perfect, no project is perfect, no company is perfect, no organization or community is perfect. But you have to lead people towards whatever you think is the promised land of your particular project.
So moving on to tokenization, we all often hear the phrase "tokenize the world," which means to tokenize anything possible, really. But cryptocurrency itself, it's still not quite to the mainstream. So what do you think it will take to bring cryptocurrency mainstream?
Yeah, I'm not sure who created the hashtag Tokenize the World, but it might be Anthony Pompliano in New York, who I met earlier this year. But I do like the hashtag, Jose, Tokenize the World. And I think it would be great if the whole industry got behind a single hashtag and put it on every platform in terms of how do you make it mainstream. Where you have many hashtags, many messages, many types of tweets, lots of very trivial arguments about maths and technical content on Twitter and Reddit, those are pointless. They don't make markets. I think what will make crypto mainstream is good old-fashioned time and one or two successful projects, like Brave, like OST, but one or two successful projects. And the reason I say time is because I still think you need 15 to 18 years to get something into the mainstream. So when I add 15 to 2008-9, I'm looking at 2023, 2026 as mainstream blockchain tokenomics in terms of when it ticks. But you also need a downside event, something going wrong. And obviously in spring of the year 2000, we had the dot-com bust, the collapse of NASDAQ, the collapse of the Dow. And so if you look at what's coming out of JP Morgan's, Goldman Sachs, if you look at the news, 2020 is being seen as some kind of recessionary year. I don't know whether that's because the tariffs going into China from Trump. Currency collapses in Turkey, something goes wrong in the Middle East. But something has to go wrong on a bigger scale than Venezuela to make crypto mainstream. And so, unfortunately, I don't wish bad things on any person, but you have to have a down to have an up. And for crypto to come up, something's got to go down. So something's got to collapse. And I don't know where that collapse is coming, but I think it is coming. And I think it's coming in the 2020 to 2022 timeframe. And I see those 2 years, much like .com, as the period when crypto will reveal its hand. More and more of the projects will have got more capital, will have hired more powerful board members, will have attracted capital from brands, and will be considering how they tokenize every asset, every person, every action, every piece of attention. And so for the crypto asset class, but I see it as a tough year for fiat, but a positive event for crypto.
So here at OST, we try to OST is working on a solution, a scaling solution to allow these corporations and companies with millions and billions of actions, millions of users to be able to implement a token. Because currently that's not doable on Ethereum. And OC is also working on making it easier for companies just to use the OC platform to create a token. So do you believe companies like OST will help bring crypto mainstream?
Yeah, I really do. I really do. Provided you've got the right leadership and you're crusading and building community, and you're teaching the board members of the brands. You have to remember the board members of the old codes, the brands, do not understand this market. They have to be educated. So provided they're educated through major accounts, and remember, most of those brands get their knowledge through the big organizations like Accenture, like KPMG, like Deloitte, like PwC. Those are the advisory support arms to these old codes. As long as the education for OST is coming through those organizations into those boardrooms, yes, I see token as a service as a mainstream product. Really as early as 2022 from OST and others like OST. But you have to remember, education has got to reach the boardroom, and it hasn't reached the boardroom yet. Not in mainstream old code. And board members understand things like attention is the product. How do you capture and monetize attention? How do you pay for attention? Provided you use concepts like that, the knowledge will spread. But typically, if you go back to .com, it takes many years for that knowledge to make it into the market. So to me, 2018 to 2023 is much like 1998 to 2003 when the knowledge was absorbed. And in 2003, we saw LinkedIn. 2004, we saw Facebook. 2006, we saw Twitter. So yeah, I really do believe it can happen. But OST have got to be partnered with major brands to do it. And that means Chinese brands, Alibaba, Tencent, Baidu, or an organization like an Amazon, a Microsoft. Somebody that wants, who recognizes there's a need to pay for and monetize attention, because users don't really understand what's happening to them. And if you read Yuval Noah Harari's new book, the 21 Lessons of the 21st Century, people are seeking clarity. This is what people are trying to understand: clarity. Clarity in the boardroom, clarity at home, clarity on their devices, overwhelmed with information. And tokens provide the beginning of that opportunity to get some clarity about what's really happening with all this information.
So what are your thoughts, or what's your vision on when we'll see the first really interesting real-world blockchain use cases? Or are they already out there?
Yeah, well, I like to think Brave is a real world use case running now. 4 million users paying for attention, giving tokens for activity through a browser. I would say that's a real world use case. To me, the B2B stuff on payments is messy and dark and not clear. You've got success with OST with the Unsplash project for images. So that's a real live project, and that's working, albeit in embryonic form. But you don't naturally come up with names, do you? You can't naturally think of names off the top of your head. Where something is hitting this device that's rewarding you, or hitting your desktop and rewarding you. So to me, it's 1998. This is 2018 is 1998. .com is .coin. .coin is .com. This is where we are now. And the big crash down, it's all rubbish. Don't believe in crypto. The blockchain bust. It's all nonsense. It's just, as the French say, plus ça change, plus c'est la même chose. The more things change, the more they stay the same. Here we are, all over again, doing it all over again. It'll come, but it can't come until education reaches the ministers and reaches the boardroom. And so we all have a battle of getting that education, that blockchain across the world. And we have to work together to do that. And if that means huddling behind the Tokenize the World hashtag, so be it. But we have to get behind something. What you have right now is lots and lots and lots of different kind of religions, angles, My mousetrap is better than your mousetrap. Mine is faster, quicker. This is all nonsense. Don't build markets like that. You have to unite and build markets together.
So going back to token as a service, which we mentioned earlier, can you briefly go back to that and explain the token as a service concept?
Okay, so if you think about this device, this is a Huawei device, a Mate 10 Pro. You've got about 150 apps on here. And when you look at these apps, you've got your Google Photos, Microsoft Teams, Google Calendar, Swarm, LinkedIn Navigator, Spotify, Instagram, Facebook, Telegram, WhatsApp. On the list goes. You have all these apps on your device. Currently, the data that you're putting through those apps is being monetized through advertising. And various messages are being sent to you from various advertisers that are being aggregated by the device owners and holders and organizers of the media here. Mainly Google, mainly Facebook, a little bit of LinkedIn and Twitter. Imagine all of your activity, every click is rewarded. Every time you touch every button, you're rewarded. Every time you touch the keyboard, you're rewarded. Every time you get in the car and drive, you're rewarded. Whether it's a Mercedes coin or a BMW coin, every activity you do is rewarded. Every time you listen, every time you watch, every time you share, every time you like, every time you retweet, every time you repost, every blog, every video, every event, every calendar, every meeting, every meetup, everything you attend, everything will be rewarded with a token. That's tokenomics. And you want to buy that as a service from somewhere. And that's what I call TAS, or tokens as a service, or tokenomics as a service. And right now, one of the places to do that is at OST. But I can see that being a massive industry, because it's got to be on every device for every person, for every brand. And brands don't want to build that themselves. They want to go to someone who can build it. But they want to build it with somebody who has access to the networks of Android, iOS, Microsoft. So who do you go to for that service right now? It's not clear. At the moment, thus, people to me are focused on the wrong part of the blockchain and being penalized by the market, which is why we're seeing this, if you like, as I said in TechCrunch this week, the bursting of the second blockchain bubble. I mean, this is media nonsense, as you know, but people like to tick things off and say, oh, that's gone, that's dead, we had that, that's, 2017, the year of the ICO, a year later, ICOs are rubbish. ICOs are not rubbish. It's just that only 1% of them are gonna make it. And so token as a service is a managed service of organizing tokens for brands, capturing that attention, where attention is the product, and then allowing people to redeem their attention, redeem their tokens, either at Baidu or Tencent or Alibaba or Rakuten or a Pinterest or a Facebook or Amazon or wherever they want to redeem their token. But Charles Hoskinson said it best. Every token's got to be consumable at every market. Every token's got to be consolidated into a single ledger. We can't have what we've got with air miles, where we've got air miles with 20 different airlines, and we never get around to redeeming them because we can never get around to booking a flight. And when we get around to booking a flight, it's not available. And that just doesn't work. So they end up sending us some cash, or giving us a drink on the plane, or sending us a bag. You want a global token environment that can be consolidated in a single place and then redeemed at any marketplace, regardless of location, product type, or geography. It really needs to be well organized on a global scale, which is why the crypto industry, the blockchain industry, will be regulated by the global governments. Once the global governments realize truly the opportunity here to make the market more efficient, capture all the data and get rid of all the paperwork. At the end of the day, it's 2018 and we've still got tons of paper. tons and tons. And if you speak to Xerox or Canon, two of the biggest copier print companies in the world, paper is still growing. Paper is not shrinking. Well, we were promised the paperless office in the early 1980s. It's 2018, it hasn't arrived yet. So we still have to sort out the paper.
Thank you for explaining the entire token as a service concept there, and I think you brought up a good, interesting point with the airline miles, as I'm pretty sure everybody has dealt with those. So you mentioned regulation. So what's your opinion on the involvement of government with blockchain and cryptocurrencies?
I think it has to come. This is today's Financial Times. I love reading the Financial Times published. Let's see if I can figure out how to put that in front of the camera. I don't know if you can see that there. Can you see that on the screen?
Yeah.
So it says MPs call, members of Parliament call for regulation of Wild West crypto assets. MPs have urged the government to regulate Wild West crypto asset markets, citing concern over investor protection and money laundering. But I've said that with appropriate regulation, the UK could become a global centre for this nascent sector. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. Let's organise it, sort it out, legitimise it, regulate it, so that it can be great for the UK, which is kind of classic political media, which we're familiar with. But yeah, I do think there's no doubt the scale of blockchain is on such a scale, it's almost like Internet 2.0. So the scale of it is vast. The idea of the crypto companies funding these new ideas, to me, is very similar to crowdfunding, where people bought into an idea, believed with their token that idea would come to fruition. And crowdfunding is probably what, 10 to 15 years old. It was almost like crypto crowdfunding or blockchain crowdfunding. So there's no doubt the idea of the ICO or funding ideas with tokens is a good idea. But unfortunately, because you have a lot of abuse and hype, misleading marketing activity on all social media and at physical events, it eventually ends up on an MP's desk. They have to sort it out, and you see these kind of articles in the Financial Times, the same in the Wall Street Journal, same as happened in the United States and in China and Southeast Asia. So when you've got a new idea and everyone seems to believe in it but doesn't like the way it's operating, it has to be organised and regulated. And if you look at the initial coin offering and compare it with the initial public offering, it is incredibly similar, and so should operate with the same level of discipline and jurisdiction. So, yeah, I see a fully regulated market, but I can't see that happening until the major crash event, which allows crypto to be born. Crypto is still seen as nasty and grubby and suspicious and dark, and that's very sad. But you know, if you go back to 1998, that's how the internet was perceived back then, and it was rubbish and poo-pooed back then. And here we are, 20 years later, and we live our lives on it now.
So going on to the last question before we answer a few of the questions from the live chat, what do you see the future of crypto? Do you see this as an everyday thing, that it'll be secondhand nature that people will be using without having to think about it, almost like with email and the internet days?
Yeah, I do, but I see, Jose, I see that taking a number of years. I don't see mainstream crypto environment until the mid-2020s. You think about how much paper we've still got to organize to get to that point, how much education we've got to do to get people to believe in the idea of that. But we are seeing a shift away from cash, digital cash on all our devices. We are starting to get used to that with our our cashless cards. But in the United States, you still have to pay your rent with a check, right? So you still can't do a transfer to pay a rental bill in the United States. It's 2018. So we've got a long way to go. So I see it as big. I think once the major brands see the power and realize that attention is the product, not their brand, once they understand it's about attention, not the brand, then they'll shift. But understanding attention is the product, when you get it, you get it. But it takes you a while to get it, and it hasn't reached the boardrooms yet.
Great. And now, thank you, Thomas, for explaining this and joining us today on OST Live to discuss the token economy as it is and tokenization. So now we're going to get to the live chat questions. First question, Thomas, is about your picture in the background with the Jeep. Is that on the West Coast, USA, is what they ask.
Well, I'll bring that down then, because it's my favorite picture.
Your audio just went out. Not sure.
Okay, it is actually it's Crete, and that's Penny, my wife, Hannah Ross, and TJ the children. We rented a one of those. I don't know the name of the Jeep, but one of those big fancy Jeeps on holiday last year in Crete, in one of the Greek islands.
Great, and for those of you. Thomas is located in London.
Yeah, it's southwest. I'm about an hour out of London, near Heathrow Airport.
Great. And our next question is from TikToken, big fan of Thomas, long-term Thomas. Can you talk about why you're excited about what Jason and the team are building?
I think what I'm most excited about what Jason and the team are building is what I perceive is token as a service, or tokenomics as a service, or TAS, because I can't see why the brands would do this themselves. Brands want to buy blockchain as a service, or tokens as a service, or crypto as a service, whichever label you most prefer. And Jason is building that with Ben and his super guy Paul. I met in Berlin with Mark from Nine Spokes, and to me, they're the first to do it. They're the first, to me, other than Brave, to understand that attention is the product, and it's got to be captured and monetized, stored in a ledger, redeemable at all the marketplaces. And when Jason told me about it April or May last year, 2017, I thought, that's the best idea I've heard so far. So I've been supporting the team for the last 18 months, because I believe that is the future of tokenization, and I believe every person should be paid for their attention when they get on a plane, or sit in a car, or sit on a train, or use a laptop, smartphone, a desktop. I think the brand should pay for people's attention, because we're giving them all this information. And generally, they're very poor at giving us anything back for it. CRM is poor. CRM is hopeless from Google. CRM is hopeless from Microsoft, hopeless from Apple. It's not too bad at Amazon. But generally, the user is not being treated well enough by the giant techs, and not being treated well enough by the brands. And I see this as an opportunity to get that relationship organized and properly managed. So that's one of the reasons I believe in OST and tokens as a service.
Great. And our next question here comes from 1772JHS, and he asks, do you see other companies that OST needs to target for partnerships? I guess he's talking about industries. Particularly, he's excited about the Passkit partnership. But I guess the question here is, what industries do you think OST can be, like what industries can use OST to implement a token in their company?
Well, certainly any of the consumer brands, physical brands or electronic brands. On the B2B side, it's less clear, because the back end of tokenization hasn't really been thought through, I don't think, from everything I've seen and read. But if you look where our trust has settled, and you look at the front page of this device, our trust has settled with Google, with Facebook, with Microsoft, with Amazon, with Twitter, with LinkedIn, with Spotify, with only a few brands. If I look at the front page here of my smartphone, there's only half a dozen brands here, really. Okay, Telegram is there, an emerging brand, but there's only half a dozen brands here. OST have to tie up with those brands, and obviously the Chinese equivalents in China and Southeast Asia, because that's where our trust has settled. And our trust is now settling around this screen. But we have to go through, OST have to work with those brands, with the whole ecosystem, I think, to actually deliver a scale for the whole market and every industry. Because literally, when we went to Bali, 5 of us in August, when you come down to the restaurant in the hotel, literally whole families are just sitting there looking at these phones in the morning. I mean, people don't talk, they look at these phones. And so this is where the relationship is shifted to. So tokens have got to get to this point to motivate engagement. And you know, there are no, you know, on my front page, there's no Mercedes-Benz here, but there's a Mercedes-Benz outside. They've got to, the brands have got to get to this point, and I can only see them doing that with companies like OST or with Google and Amazon and Facebook and Apple. Frittercoin, Amazon, Googling, Facecoin, and we don't yet know in terms of the future. We don't know, are the exchanges going to merge with the miners? Are we going to see the miners all merge into one? Because when BTC falls, it's going to hurt all the miners. Are we going to see what did Anthony Pompliano forecast? A Facebook Coinbase combination, to have a face coin to be paid for every like and every share. We could easily have a face coin with a combination of Coinbase and Facebook. There can't be enough market for exchanges and miners and tokens as a service. They have to vertically integrate into a few big organizations. So either GAFA's going to go in and get that market, or some new mergers are going to come about. But it's the exchanges and the miners. I think we still don't know, because those miners are going to run out of cash as this market keeps falling, and so they're either got to consolidate, they've either got to IPO, or they've got to roll up with somebody else, or the banks are going to step in and get an opportunity to go into the mining business and offer mining as a service to large organizations. A bit like what Valerie and George do at Bitfury, which I think is a very fascinating concept. So it's hard to call a future market, Jose. You know, I don't know any rich people who are futurists. I just know the scale of it is vast and it's coming. And right now, it's all about research, analysis, education, and faces leading the market. What I love about Jason, he's got a good face and he leads. Charles leads, Vitalik leads, Joseph leads. You've got to get out on the podium and lead markets, just as we saw with Andy Grove at Intel and Bill and Steve in the 1980s with Rod Canyon at Compaq. Yeah, you've got to have faces out there, and we need more faces crusading the tokenize the world concept, because we've got to tokenize every asset, every piece of paper, every person, every click, every vehicle, every train, every plane. We've got to tokenize everything. That's a lot of work. That's a 30-year job. This is not some walk in the park project. This is a generational project. Blockchain is Internet 2.0. We've got to see it for what it is and work with it for what it is.
Great, and this is obviously a very exciting time that we're in to see actually experience that. You know, what you experienced with that .com bubble. It's exciting to be experiencing this sort of with the, as you mentioned, Internet 2.0. So now that we went through the questions, and thank you everybody for joining us in the live chat. So Thomas, I just want to add where people can find you. You recently authored a book, co-authored with Sean All, which we will be having on OST Live, and talking about the book Tokenomics, which Thomas wrote. So Thomas, where can people find you?
They can find me on Twitter at Thomas Power. You can find my email there. You can find my WhatsApp there. The book Jose comes out next month, so you'll find that on Amazon.com, India, China, Germany, and so on. But yeah, you can find me here. You can see my email, my WhatsApp there, or you can tweet me. Or believe it or not, I actually take phone calls. You can actually phone me, and I will answer the phone, assuming I'm available.
Great. And, here's Thomas's Twitter page. Obviously, he makes it easy to reach him. If you want to ask him a question, you can tweet him. And next, we'll be talking to Sean, that also authored Tokenomics with Thomas. So we're excited to having that. We're also having a variety of different leaders in the blockchain industry on OST Live. So, Thomas, thank you for joining us on OST Live.
Thank you for inviting me, Jose. Thank you, Jason, for putting me forward.
And everyone, be sure to hit that subscribe button while you're on YouTube. And that thumbs up button really helps us out. And also check us out on iTunes, Spotify, anywhere you listen to podcasts. But now we're also on the Amazon Alexa app, so you can have us in your flash briefing. And yeah, we'll see you guys next time.